This guitar on the wall behind me is a very unique guitar that doubles as a standard guitar, but also as a MIDI controller. So you can play strings, or synth, or drums, or whatever MIDI devices you want to control with your guitar. This is the Jamstik Classic MIDI guitar by Jamstik, and ever since I got to try it out at NAMM this year, I was very curious to check it out more. The MIDI works with USB-C, 3.5mm TRS Midi, or even Bluetooth MIDI. It tracks extremely well. You can connect to any software or hardware that accepts MIDI, or you can use the Jamstik software for computer, tablet, or phone and get even more out of it. You can do pitch bends with it and it tracks really well. You can set it to standard MIDI or MIDI polyphonic expression. You can also use the software in standalone or with a DAW such as Ableton or Logic. It feels and plays and sounds just like a normal guitar, but it also has the option of using your guitar as a MIDI controller, which is very cool. So many thanks to Jamstik for sending this over for me to check out for the channel. This is not a paid video or anything like that, and just as always, all the opinions in this video are my own. If you do decide that this is something that's right for you, there are links down below, and if you use the promo code ScottYuleMusic at checkout, you can get 10% off your purchase. That's enough of the intro. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and let's go ahead and get started. So what's included? First of all, you do get a gig bag. Some of the higher end models do come with a hard case, and I'll address that when I go over the different options. We've got the guitar right here. You also get this pouch with a couple accessories. You get this USB-C cable for either charging or using the MIDI. You get 2 different Allen wrenches for setup, a few guitar picks. You also get this 3.5mm to 5-pin MIDI cable if you do want to use this with anything that accepts 5-pin MIDI. And you also have this USB-C to USB-A adapter, which is also really nice that they include that. Basically everything that you need in order to get started. So you can see this model specifically has 2 single coils and then a humbucker. But then over here, this is where all the MIDI magic happens. You can see that there's a pickup for each string, and that's going to convert it to a MIDI signal. So you have your standard 1/4-inch jack for the guitar part of the guitar, but over here you also have a couple of different ways that you can connect via MIDI. So you can push this button right here in order to turn it on and start using the MIDI, and then you can either connect to it via Bluetooth or directly with USB-C or out the 3.5mm TRS port. And again, if you need to use it with something that accepts 5-pin MIDI, you have that adapter. So as far as the guitar part, it operates just like a standard guitar. Here's a clean tone. And then here's a distorted tone. So there are different models. Some of them have dual humbuckers. This model in particular has the 2 single coils and a humbucker. It does have locking tuners, which I really like, especially for something like this that needs to track. I'll post the specs on the screen now. If you are interested, go ahead and pause the screen. And again, there are links down below if you want to compare the different models. However, I'm going to spend the rest of the video talking about the MIDI features because that's what makes this guitar stand out. So you can connect this to anything software or hardware that accepts MIDI. So here's a sample of me recording in Logic just using a string library from Spitfire Audio. And then here's another one, just me recording to a synth in Contact. And then here's another one where my Jamstik is connected to my iPad running Sample Tank. You could also use this to transcribe music into something like Guitar Pro or something like that, which is also a really cool bonus for this. And there is one setting that's going to help you out with that in the software, and I'll go over that here a little bit later. So they do have the Jamstik Creator app. This is software as well as an app for your phone or tablet. This is going to allow you to configure some of the settings, which is really important for the Jamstik, but also they have a lot of different presets and sounds that you can download, as well as do a lot of different control and sound design to those patches. So remember, you can use this with whatever MIDI software or hardware you want, but for the rest of this video, I'm going to focus on the software and the app specifically and show you how to set up your Jamstik and do some of the sound design in the app and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and check that out. Okay, so I have the software loaded up right here in standalone. You can connect it to a DAW if you want as well. I'm just going to do it in standalone, and I am going to be doing this wirelessly over Bluetooth because I think the Bluetooth is actually quite solid on this, but you can connect to it via USB as well. The first thing you're going to want to do is go to your audio MIDI setup right here. And you just want to make sure that your device is selected. So I'm connecting over Bluetooth, so I'm going to select that and hit OK. By default, it was at 48 for a sample rate, but I set it to 44.1. And then check your buffer size. It depends on the strength of your computer, but a lower buffer size will have less latency. But if you start getting clicks and pops, you want to start bringing that up. So that was your audio MIDI setup. And then you do want to go to some device settings here. Just a couple things to think of. Do you want it in multi-polyphonic expression, single channel, or multi-channel? If you don't know what that means, I'll go over that here in a little bit, but it is really nice that it gives you some info down here. Do you want to enable pitch bends? So right now, it is enabled. But I can disable that, and you can see on the fretboard graph, it just does the steps instead. So how much do you want the string to bend? So you can see, I mean, I can't go up 2 octaves in a pitch bend, but I could set this down to 1, and then it only bends up a half step. And then it maxes out. Doesn't matter how high I bend it, or I could set it to 2, so I can only bend a whole step. That can be really helpful. You can also transpose by octaves, so I can choose the octave that I want to be at, or lower it by an octave, bring it up by an octave, and so on and so forth. You can also set it in semitones. You want to drive your ear crazy hearing the sound of your guitar strings and a half step lower, but you have that as an option. And I'll show you some of the more advanced settings here later. And you do want to make sure that you are in tune, obviously, because this is going to be tracking. Let me actually set it to a nicer sound, actually, really quick. So go to the device settings and set your tuning, and just make sure you're in tune. And then if you are going to be using a different tuning, you can set that here. It will be able to track based on what notes you're playing, but just to give it a better understanding of what tuning you're in, set your tuning here. I'm going to be using this in standard. All right, that's just the initial setup. So first thing to do is just to start going through some of the presets. So most of you will have the factory right here. You can download additional presets. I have some of them downloaded here. So I'm just going to go through some of the factories. You're going to see all of the different ones they have in here, or if you're looking for a specific keys type of one. So I'm going to do this ambient piano. So you can see like the notes that I'm playing on this fretboard right here, which is really cool. Again, I can bend individual notes while another one is staying still. Pretty cool that it's multi-polyphonic expression. So first, I'm just going to demo some of my favorite presets that I found. yeah, if you want to download some other ones, you can click here and it'll take you to the store where you can download some different presets. You can also star them if you really like them. You can see that I starred this ensemble choir because I like this one. So now that one will show up in my starred folder over here. But yeah, when you first get this, just start going through some of the presets and find something that you like. But say you wanted to start editing some of the sounds, you can also do that by clicking this editor over here. So you can see that there is a delay on right here so that you can see the effects. I'm gonna turn the delay off and turn the phaser off. Definitely a different type of sound now. Let's put the delay back on. But you can go in here and edit all of this different stuff. Look at this. So you have all these different oscillators in here. The noise oscillator, so I could disable that if I wanted it to go away. Or I want that one to come back. So this was the one that was kind of bright. And this can happen. This can happen with any MIDI instrument. I love that they have this MIDI panic button up here. And it'll stop any of the MIDI notes. That's awesome that they did that. So this was the sound that I didn't really like. I wanted a little bit more pad-like. So now I've changed the sound of that just by disabling this. I mean, you can set the transposition right here in octave. Let's say it's something that I ended up liking. I can go to menu. I can save it as a preset, say where it's going to be stored at, and then save it. So now if I ever want to get back to it, I have it right here as my own personal preset. So let's continue with editing this one. So let's add a new effect on here. I'm going to click this plus button. Let's go ahead and add a bit crusher, which I never really like the sound of, but you know, I can choose how I want this to sound. Pretty wild. One of the things that I really like is that, so let's say on this warm string, I can turn the delay up just right here. I can turn the filter up right here. I can also build a new instrument from scratch. So I can just go here, start a sampler. So I can do timpani and warm strings. That's pretty cool. I can even start from absolute scratch and just do an oscillator. And just build from complete scratch. I can also set to mono or polyphonic. Change the envelopes, change the filter, all that stuff. You get a lot of control over everything that you want to do here. You can also just delete this. You can set the level so that timpani was too high. I mean, it's absolutely crazy how much control you get over all of this stuff. Let's go to the final frontier. I like this one. So you can see some of the easy edits are over here, so the transmissions. Hear the difference between those? The brightness of it. The static sound. But then you see that you have these other 4, 5, and 6 macros over here. This is where you can start going into the editor and you can start editing this sound in different ways. So I have all sorts of different oscillators in here. So let me go ahead and just mute some of these just so we can focus on which one we're editing so you really can hear what's happening. Let's do this one just for right now. So I can enable the filter or disable it. Especially for like sound design stuff, if you're a fan of sound design, you can really start changing this around. Change transposition so it's standard instead of an octave lower. How many voices basically in unison. I mean, look at how much sound design control you get in here. It's just crazy. But then you can also assign different LFO controls and stuff like that. So what you can do is you can click and then drag it and say, I want this LFO to adjust the gain. So now watch. See, it's bouncing back and forth with the gain. But this is really cool. So the CC over here, so I can say that I want to assign the frequency to be controlled. You can either set by MIDI learn, so you can assign it to something else, or I can say based on the pitch bend. So now I can change this frequency. Why is it not changing? Oh, and I need to say how much do I want it to bend. So you can see when I'm bending a string, it's changing the frequency. That's truly crazy. And then the expression one, this is how hard you're hitting it. So you can see when I hit it softly, it reacts this way when I hit hard. Look at how much control you get. With that editor, there's just so many things you can do, or you can just go through some of the patches and then you say you like the strings. I'm gonna add a little bit more reverb and a little bit more delay to it. You can also set the tempo over here if you're doing stuff that syncs up. You can also audition sounds down here. So if you want to hear how they sound without playing the guitar, you have that as an option here. So the sensitivity is really cool. You can see I can be very dynamic with my strumming. So I can be very dynamic with my playing. But what I can do is I can set this to just be 127. And now everything I strum, no matter how light I hit, is going to be just at max velocity. So pretty cool, you can set your velocity limits. And again, you can also do this per string. So if I want A to be more sensitive or less sensitive, I can set that here. It tells you right here, it changes how likely a note will be registered as a MIDI note. So that's really valuable. Some advanced options, you can set some of this stuff right here. Transcription mode, this is really interesting. This is if you're going to use it to record into Guitar Pro or something like that. You only need to turn that on when you're doing something like that. But the most important thing is that you have pitch bend on or off. That's one of the most important things. Make sure that you choose single channel, multi-channel, or MPE. And then it's also really cool is I can quickly double tap the power button right here. And you can see it's changing the MIDI settings. So I can go from single channel to MPE. That's smart that they gave you that as an option so you don't have to use the software if you just really quickly want to change between the two modes. So as far as pricing, it depends on which model you get. So the one that I have is the Jamstik Classic, and that one is $9.99. And you can choose between different colors, and they do also have right and left-handed versions as well. For a little bit cheaper, you can get the Jamstik Studio for $800, and they also have some higher-end models, the Jamstik Standard for $1,100, and then the deluxe one for $15. And you can go on the website and compare the different specs and stuff like that. So going up to the deluxe model, you can see it's 24 frets as opposed to 22 frets. It has a hardtail bridge. It has 2 humbuckers instead. You get a hard case and a couple of other changes. But in general, the whole idea of the MIDI part of it is still the same. There will be links down below if you want to check this out for yourself. And also, if you use the promo code ScottUllMusic at checkout, you can save 10% off your entire purchase. So links and details will be available down below in the description. So there is the app as well that's available on phone and tablet. You get basically the same ideas, just a little bit less control over the sound and stuff like that. But you can do all the adjustments, change the MIDI settings, change the sensitivity and stuff like that, which is definitely very important, especially if you're out gigging live and you don't bring your computer and you need to make some adjustments using the app. So just some advice and some problem solving. So first of all, if you are hearing sound only on one string, check your MIDI settings, try setting it to single channel mode, especially if you're using it with other software, not the Jamstik app specifically, but set it to a single channel because likely what's happening is just the high E string is outputting on channel 1 or something like that. So that's the only one that's being picked up by your MIDI software. And just keep in mind with a MIDI guitar, you do have to be a lot more clean with your playing. If you're playing like a funk riff or something like that, you can't rake the strings because that can be interpreted as MIDI notes. But again, you want to set your sensitivity to help reduce that. But you do just overall just want to play a lot cleaner when you're playing MIDI guitar. And then also Jamstik did say that they are working on a floor controller that they said is hopefully going to be out sometime this summer. If you are watching this sometime in the future, I will update links down below in the description once it's out. So be sure to check the description to see if that comes out, because as soon as it does come out, I'll be sure to link to that down below. But overall, this thing is really well designed. It plays great. It tracks extremely well. I guess the only con that I really have for it is that the fret could be sanded down a little bit more. It's a tiny bit pokey, you know, when you put your hand around it. It's not the end of the world. That was like the only thing that I really noticed about it. Everything else was really cool. I like the versatility of how many ways you can use it with MIDI. I love how well it tracks. I love how much control you get over it with the software. It's definitely very well designed, and I'm really grateful that Jamstik sent it over for me to check out for the channel. So if you guys are interested in checking this out for yourself, don't forget to use the links down below in the description, and don't forget to use promo code ScottYuleMusic to save 10% off your purchase. If you guys found this video helpful, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button to feed the YouTube algorithm gods. 2 other videos of mine to check out. Check out my video on the Witty Jack. This is a wireless MIDI adapter, so it's able to convert 3.5 millimeter or other MIDI sources into Bluetooth wireless MIDI, which is really cool. And you can also check out my most recent video by clicking the links on your screen now. Thank you guys again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.